What's good, everybody? This your boy D Money. We on another episode of the A Lot of Fashion podcast. So make sure that you hit that like, subscribe, and also, comment your opinions in the chat and the comments so that way, we can get your opinion as well too. Primarily what we've been talking about on this series in season 2 is building a product from nothing. And what we're going to talk about today specifically is why most content fails while you're trying to market your brand. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you also check out our From the Mud collection, spoken word album, and poetry book, all available on our website and the proper platforms as well too. So go ahead and tap in. So let's get right into it. Most content lacks, clarity, purpose, or any type of consistency, because typically, most people, what they'll do is they'll post, funny videos that may not necessarily align with their brand, but more so their personality. And, it kind of distracts from, the overall message that they're trying to put out. They also won't post consistently to where, they're getting their brand message out there on a daily basis and reiterating that message on a daily basis. And then on top of that, most people just don't move with purpose or, anything in general. Like everything is kind of in chaos. So first and foremost, you got to remember posting isn't the same as communicating with people. So number one is content without direction. Random posting confuses, the audience. They primarily want you to talk about the things that you are set to talk about as far as with your brand message, your brand identity, and your overall mission for your brand. So, the overall goal is to primarily focus in on that mission, and your content, your products should be, an example and expression of that. Content should align with the goals of the business. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be for, a collection, whether it be for a single product release, whether it be for, an overall year or events. Everything should, all align with the overall message of the brand, those goals that you have set forth, and the vision. A clear message matters when you're putting out content, because even if it's entertainment, as long as it's a clear message to where, it relates to your audience and, they can gain something from it, whether it's just a laugh or, some type of wisdom, knowledge that they can take and implement into their lives. It ultimately is something that solves problems. And that's where number 2, comes in, because people typically talk about nothing. Valuable content solves problems, creates solutions, and that's why, people tap into the product and even, the brand's content. Audiences follow useful voices, you know what I'm saying? Once you're able to actually be consistent with who you are as a voice, and then on top of that, you're focused in daily on the message and just putting out consistent content with that message, then the message strengthens, number 1. Number 2, you begin to gain, confidence in speaking that message to an audience without even looking at the audience. And, it becomes part of who you are as well too. Empty content gets ignored. You know what I'm saying? People are just gonna, bypass that jump. That's why, these platforms have a click-through rate, because they want to make sure that if, they're gonna send you money, or, they know that people are gonna invest in your content, they know that they're gonna primarily watch most of it, if not the whole thing. And once they're able to see that, then they're able to invest in you. So that's how you know that you have something that at least you can build off of as far as making content in the future. So that's kind of how I gauge a lot of my content as well too, is the average views per video, the percentage on that, and then the click-through rate. If there's a problem with that, I watch what areas of the video that they primarily stayed on, and then wherever else they click through, that's where I primarily gotta work on. But we all primarily gotta focus in on having stronger hooks, with your content. Of course, sounding like an expert. Jordan Belfort said it best. Once you sound like an expert, people are going to start to trust what you have to say, and then ultimately engage with your brand. So that's how you build foundation. You feel me? The third thing is inconsistent branding. Having mixed messages where you're posting, like I said, random content, and the content doesn't necessarily align with your goals, as well as not having a clear message or call to actions in your videos as well too, take away from anything that you're trying to say to your audience. Because again, posting isn't the same as communicating. So each post should be some form of communication to the goals that you have, the direction of the brand, and the overall vision of the brand. Strong brands communicate clearly, and they're consistent. They do it on a consistent basis. As you're starting to hear more and more from different artists, once you're able to post on these platforms at peak times during the day or right before those peak times, then you'll get the most out of your content as well too. But like I said, and it's important to have a strong hook, strong call to action. Also speaking like an expert within your videos, making sure you've done the research on the topics that you actually are talking about, and you even have some case studies to prove it. So it's a process, but at the same time, you don't want to have content that lacks clarity and purpose. And of course, you want to be consistent, because the more that you're out there, the more that people see you, the more that your brand is going to grow. And you also got to think about it from this standpoint too. There's millions and billions of people out in the world that are doing similar things just like you. They're posting their content, they have an audience, and they're trying to even build greater. So you got to be willing to do similar things in that regard, as far as putting your content out there on a consistent basis, so that way your audience can grow and you can have a solid foundation, and then from that foundation you can build audience further. So it's just part of, like I always say at the end of these videos and our content, gotta have a solid plan, do the solid research, execute that motherfucker, and your dreams and goals will come to fruition. So like I say, keep visualizing your purpose, and we are out. Thank you guys for watching another episode of A Lot of Fashion. We appreciate you guys for liking and subscribing, and also staying tuned through the whole episode. Make sure that you take these business gems and start visualizing your purpose. I am out.